The last person I ever expected to see that afternoon was my ex-wife's mother, standing alone by a quiet pool in southern Florida, staring at the water like it held answers she'd been searching for her entire life. I had just stepped out of the hotel lobby in Clearwater, trying to escape the suffocating weight of another business trip, when I froze mid-step. There she was, Margaret, the woman who once hugged me at my wedding like I was the son she never had, the woman who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. And in that moment, the air felt heavier than the humid July sky. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you something. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that broken relationships can sometimes be rebuilt in unexpected ways, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Because this story is about more than divorce. It's about redemption. 3 years earlier, my marriage to Rachel had ended in a courtroom that felt colder than any winter ID ever known in Ohio. We were young when we married. I was ambitious, obsessed with growing my construction business in Tampa. She wanted stability, attention, a husband who came home before midnight. I kept promising her that once the company took off, things would calm down. But once never came soon enough. The distance between us grew silently at first, like a crack in a foundation you don't notice until the whole house begins to tilt. By the time she asked for a divorce, I was too proud to fight for her the way I should have. I told myself she didn't understand the pressure I was under. I told myself she'd regret walking away. But when the judge finalized everything and she walked out of that courtroom with her mother's arm wrapped around her shoulders, I realized something terrifying. I had lost more than a marriage. I had lost a family. Margaret had always been kind to me. She invited me to Sunday dinners in Orlando, asked about my projects, bragged to her friends about my work ethic. After the divorce, that kindness vanished. She blocked my number, sent back a Christmas card unopened. In her eyes, I had broken her daughter's heart. Maybe I had. So when I saw her by that pool, my first instinct was to turn around. But something about her posture stopped me. She wasn't sitting upright with that familiar confidence. Her shoulders were slumped. Her silver hair was uncombed, blowing wildly in the wind. She looked smaller somehow, like grief had folded her in on herself. I walked toward her before I could change my mind. She noticed me only when my shadow fell across the lounge chair beside her. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw the same anger I remembered from the courthouse. But it faded almost immediately, replaced by something I hadn't expected. Ex-Houseton. We didn't exchange pleasantries. There was no dramatic confrontation, just two people standing on opposite sides of a shattered past. I learned within minutes why she was there. Rachel had been in a car accident 2 nights earlier while driving back from Jacksonville. A drunk driver ran a red light. She survived but barely. Multiple fractures, internal injuries. She was unconscious in a nearby hospital, clinging to life. The words hit me harder than any punch ever could. I hadn't spoken to Rachel in over a year. We had both moved on in different ways, or at least that's what I told myself. Hearing that she was lying in a hospital bed, fighting to breathe, ripped open emotions I thought I had buried. Margaret told me she didn't know who else to call. Rachel's friends were out of state. Her father had passed years ago. She was alone in that city, terrified, watching machines keep her daughter alive. And for reasons I still can't fully explain, she had called me. I followed her to the hospital without hesitation. Walking into that ICU room felt like stepping into a nightmare. Rachel looked so fragile, wrapped in tubes and wires, her vibrant personality reduced to the faint rise and fall of a ventilator-assisted breath. The sight shattered something inside me. I remembered the way she used to laugh at my terrible jokes, the way she danced barefoot in our kitchen. And I wondered how we had let pride and silence destroy something that once felt unbreakable. Over the next few days, I stayed. I canceled my meetings. I worked remotely from the hospital cafeteria. I sat with Margaret during endless updates from doctors. We didn't talk much about the past. There was no blame left in her voice, only fear. Something shifted between us in that sterile waiting room. Pain has a strange way of stripping away resentment. We were no longer ex-in-law and former son-in-law. We were just two people who loved the same woman, terrified of losing her. On the 4th day, Rachel finally opened her eyes. The relief was overwhelming. Margaret wept openly, clutching my hand without even realizing it. When Rachel's gaze found mine, confusion flickered across her face. followed by recognition. I don't know what she felt in that moment, but I saw something soften in her expression. Recovery was slow, physical therapy, surgeries, emotional breakdowns when the pain became too much. I visited every evening after work. At first, it felt awkward. We were two people with a complicated history sitting in a room filled with machines and unspoken regrets. But gradually, the silence became less heavy. We began talking not about who was right or wrong, but about what went wrong. About how ambition can become obsession. About how loneliness can exist even when you share a bed. For the first time, I listened without defending myself. And she listened too. Margaret watched it all from the corner of the room, saying little. But one afternoon, as I helped Rachel practice walking with a metal frame, I caught Margaret smiling. Not the polite smile she once gave me at family gatherings. A genuine one. Weeks turned into months. Rachel moved back to Orlando to continue rehabilitation. I found excuses to be there on weekends. What began as obligation turned into something deeper, a rediscovery of friendship. We didn't rush anything. There were no dramatic declarations, just small acts, coffee on the porch, honest conversations, shared laughter over old memories that didn't sting as much anymore. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Florida horizon, Margaret invited me to sit with her by her backyard pool. The same kind of setting where this unexpected reunion had begun. She told me she had spent years blaming me entirely for the divorce. It was easier that way. But watching me show up day after day when I didn't have to, changed her perspective. People make mistakes, she said. But character is revealed in how they respond when it matters most. That night, she thanked me. It was simple, but it meant everything. A year after the accident, Rachel and I stood together in that same backyard, healthier, humbler, and wiser than we had ever been before. We weren't trying to erase the past. We had learned from it. Slowly, carefully, we chose each other again. The second time wasn't built on grand promises. It was built on presence. Running into Margaret by that hotel pool had felt like a cruel twist of fate, but it became the doorway to reconciliation I never thought possible. It forced me to confront the parts of myself I had avoided, gave me a chance to show up when it truly counted. Sometimes life doesn't offer second chances in the form of romance or grand gestures. Sometimes it hands you a hospital waiting room and asks who you're going to be when it's inconvenient, when it's painful, when no one expects you to care anymore. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes it's too late to fix what's broken, and subscribe for more stories that remind us why compassion still matters. And before this story ends, I have a special request. Comment the word rebuild below if you believe that even shattered relationships can find new foundations. Because here's what I learned that summer in Florida. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the cracks. It's about choosing to pour new concrete anyway. And sometimes the person you run into by accident becomes the reason your entire future changes. I thought I was walking past a stranger by a pool. Instead, I was walking back toward my family,